Well, yes, there's probably an infinite variety of possible ways. But major is actually the Jesus story. As regards its comprehensiveness of coping with what presents as very unsatisfactory solutions to man's lot. It simply says that this world is not an end in itself, and that what is truly of value is the spiritual life of the individual, by which we mean not simply some story of the afterlife, but what life is itself. Which is not material, but something of thought. And thoughts not now specifically technological understanding type thoughts of how to make things or reorganize things or overcome sickness or build a house or build prosperity. But thoughts of, well, the thoughts that matter to the individual. Do I have hope? Do I have purpose? Am I creative? Is there meaning to life? Do I have hope? Peace? Joy? Love? Assurance? These are all nebulous from a material standpoint. But are vitally important to your happiness and peace of mind, life, your willingness to live even. And without these things, or if you like, some very low level of fulfillment of these dimensions, there is despair, which may range from laying flat in the street, just complete lifelessness, to violent revolution. In other words, these things have to be, in some sense, ministered to by the state, else it may face dilemmas that it can't handle and disintegrate. Now, our stories and beliefs are much of this intangible resource that must be there. Else chaos comes to your society. Internal strife, revolution, non-cooperation, lack of creativity, lack of life. Because, of course, whoever has power and privilege, it depends on cooperation of the life in achieving such. So our stories are very important. Our myths, our heroes. You know, they might be Hollywood dream heroes or pop heroes or sport heroes or even political heroes. None of them are in themselves the underlying power brokers in society. They are simply the focus on which the cooperation of society is built. So that people have hope in the current candidates in an election. They have hope in their experts and professional persons. They trust, in some sense, their media in that they perhaps have no other information anyway. It's the only information they've got. And the philosophy is presented to them accordingly too. So they must have beliefs in their society consistent with its stability, having a preference, of course, for their own compared to those of other countries, especially hostile other countries. But of course you can get empire and world elites that are international and perhaps global, so that there is no foreign hostile elite. There's apparent variety, but not necessarily competition among the elite. It's a monopoly situation. Not necessarily one single Tartarian global hereditary family. But perhaps a fractured version of such, like 19th century world historicity. Or 20th century historicity now of competitive international technological trade and societies and so on. In the 21st century, well, it's like the 1984 story of a mythical competition and war going on. That keeps societies preoccupied rather than rebelling. A phony war. A war that in some sense can go on continuously without destabilizing the global society that's doing very well for its surviving elite. Perhaps, but you're not sure, because you can't identify them easily. They're not the obvious media figures that are being presented. That's just a show to keep you in the phony story of war and progress and necessity that leaves you with a pragmatism that demands its continuance. You know, we don't want war, but we've no choice. Wars are easy to take up and very difficult to end. They go on and seem to be costing society a lot, and yet society still seems to find the resources to fund it, and you wonder if the whole thing isn't a charade. And who benefits? Some mythical elite. But the elites you see seem to be forever harassed and demoted by the next winners in the public lottery that seems to be presented by your media. And there dawns on one, of course, in this situation, an underlying dissatisfaction and an erosion of sense of purpose and meaning. And that is a serious problem. And no matter how much you control the media and the visible story that's being presented, the cracks in the society seem to be growing, and people become desperate as to what the solution might be. And all their goals, no matter how noble, like perhaps we should be preserving the environment, or perhaps we should be having a welfare state, or perhaps we should be going to war against some evil, all seem to turn out to be rather futile in terms of life, encouraging creativity, peace, assurance, joy, meaning, hope, love, compassion, joy, peace. You're round in circles just not knowing what the real answer is. So we seek out from our past experience, even though we've obliterated it, under this shroud of historicity. We reinterpret the past, re-look at it, ferret around to see what we might have missed and what we might find of value. You come across things like the Jesus story, or the Buddhist view, or all the various religions of the past, or the ancient philosophies, be they Greek or Persian or Egyptian, or generates a great seeking. Seek and you shall find. Knock and it shall be opened unto you. For everyone that seeketh findeth. Oh, Words of hope. Where are the words of hope? Oh, they're in our myths and stories. An unlimited number of them from the past. You might take hold of that which has been apparently major in your own society's past. You might look at something like the Christian story again. Not perhaps the whole of the Bible, because that's many different stories, all crunched together, minced together, really. You end up with a lot of contradiction that way. What's it, 66 books across supposedly 3,000 or 4,000 years thrown in together. You've got a soup, a stew. But if you look at individual parts, I've focused, haven't I, on the Gospels, red ink, the red letter Bibles, words of Jesus, supposedly, in the story. John's Gospel. I find things of interest. I find things of interest in all the religions, actually, and all the philosophies, all of them seem to have something to offer. Sometimes it's the same as elsewhere, of course. Which do you choose? One that you think might work? The one that appeals to you most? Thank you, Heavenly Dad.